Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us here on KREM 2 News First at 4. I'm Whitney Ward. We begin tonight with new details about the investigation into the murder of 4 University of Idaho students back in November. We have newly unsealed court documents at this hour, and we've just learned more about what investigators found inside the suspect's Pullman apartment. Police arrested 28-year-old Brian Kohberger. That was at the end of December for the murders of Ethan Chapin, Madison Mogan, Kaylee Gonsalves, and Xana Kernodle. The suspect is charged with 4 counts of first-degree murder for allegedly entering the students' off-campus home and stabbing them to death in their beds. Investigators did narrow in on Kohberger in the weeks after the killing. Tonight, we know more about what was found inside his apartment following his arrest. We turn now to our senior crime reporter, Amanda Rowley, who obtained a copy of the search warrant for the suspect's home this morning. Keeping in mind the search actually took place before Kohberger was arrested 3 weeks ago. Amanda, what do we know about what police were actually looking for?
Yeah, Whitney, the search warrants show investigators were looking for any evidence linking Brian Kohberger to the murder of the 4 University of Idaho students. A judge granted the warrant so officers could thoroughly search for evidence at the suspect's Pullman apartment and the WSU student office. Now, investigators cast a pretty wide net, hoping to collect any blood, items with blood, DNA from blood, hair, skin cells, or fingerprints from these 2 locations. But then the search warrant gets specific. They also searched for articles of dark clothing, masks, knives and sheaths, and shoes with a specific diamond pattern sole. Now, investigators also searched for electronic or paper evidence of the suspect showing an interest in or planning of a murder and how to get away with it. This, along with any information the suspect collected about the 4 student victims, the 2 surviving roommates, or their home on King Road. Now, during the search, we now know officers seized a dozen items from the suspect's apartment, and those items are currently being stored by the WSU Police Department. That list includes a single nitrile black glove, a Walmart receipt with a Dickies tag, a dust container from a vacuum, and 8 possible hair strands, including a possible animal hair strand. Now, the list also shows investigators collected a dark red spot and cut 2 reddish-brown stains from a pillow. Again, these items brought back from Kohberger's apartment. Now, aside from this search warrant, it even revealed just how quickly the suspect's arrest happened just within a matter of days. So I'll lay out all that tonight at 5. Whitney?
Very interesting. And Amanda, the search warrants had previously been sealed since they were filed at the end of last month. So What do we know about why they're now being unsealed?
Yeah, so the Washington search warrants, they were originally sealed to protect the privacy and safety of the witnesses and the family of the victims. We actually weren't expecting to see these documents get unsealed until March, but documents say after Latah County made the extensive probable cause affidavit publicly available, this removed the need to keep the Washington search warrants sealed. Whitney?
All right, Amanda, thank you very much. We also know it likely will be several more months before the suspect returns to court. The next time Kohberger is expected back in court is June 26th. That will be for his preliminary hearing as it is scheduled now. That's the hearing where he is expected to enter his plea of guilty or not guilty. We also know the entire last week of June has been set aside in the court calendar for attorneys to present their evidence. All right, now to another developing situation in Lewiston tonight. A boil order has been issued for the entire city. Schools have been canceled and people there are being asked not to drink any of the water out of their faucets. We want to go straight to KREM 2's Shannon Mowdy live in Lewiston tonight. This after this big reservoir failure tonight. Shannon?
Well, Whitney, people living here tell me that they heard what they thought at first was a thunderstorm around 4:30 this morning, but just take a look behind me. This is what they are now cleaning up after that water reservoir broke. Lewiston's mayor has now issued a disaster declaration that is on its way to the governor's office tonight. Now, that means that if the state signs off on it, they could get assistance such as funding for repairs or even more crews to help with the cleanup on the ground. This all started early Wednesday morning. A city spokesperson says the reservoir broke and sent water down the hill. At this hour, we are still waiting on an update from the city of Lewiston as the crews are still up at the reservoir assessing how that broke. but the water ended up in Audrey Royce's backyard and her basement.
Our basement was probably flooded with about 4.5 feet of water. Pretty much wiped out all the stuff down there.
All city water customers, as we mentioned, are still under that boil water advisory. The city tells me that while the reservoir is not a complete loss, the damage to it could mean that debris could get inside. So they are still asking people to not only boil their water, but conserve it as much as possible. That is for just the city of Lewiston's water customers. Live in Lewiston, Shannon Mowdy, KREM 2 News.
My goodness. All right, Shannon, thank you very much. In other top stories at this hour, the man who set fire to a Spokane Catholic church in 2021 was sentenced to 5 years in prison. Rio Mirabal was accused and convicted of setting St. Charles Catholic Church offices and the attached school on fire. He pleaded guilty to starting the fire this week in federal court. Surveillance video on campus is actually what helped law enforcement identify him as that suspect. The fire destroyed the living quarters of the priest who also lived on campus. He was actually asleep when the fire started but managed to escape. Coming up tonight at 5, we actually spoke to that priest about how the church has recovered or tried to over the last 2 years since that fire. In the meantime, skiers and snowboarders on local mountains are causing a big jump in unintentional 911 calls from their smartwatches. Some smartwatches are programmed with a fall detection feature, which calls 911 if you fall down. So the Bonner County Sheriff's Office reported a 30% increase in calls from people up at Schweitzer Mountain. And it's not just an isolated problem there. It's also happening at Mount Spokane.
It's tough for us because it pulls resources away from the real needs. In some cases, there may be somebody there, and it does help us. But in most cases, it's been a false alarm.
Law enforcement, of course, treats every call like a real emergency until they know it is a misdial, which, of course, as he said, takes time and resources. So right now they're asking people to just disable that feature while they are skiing or snowboarding so they can focus their patrol deputies where they actually need to be. All right, let's talk weather right now. A very gray January day, and it was actually very warm outside. I kept looking at the thermometer in my car thinking, really? Really? Our chief meteorologist, Jeremy Legou, is joining us right now, and it was 43 degrees, I think, according to my car. And now, are we still expecting snow tonight?
Yeah, and it's all about the way this thing works. So in a frontal situation just like this, what will wind up happening is you get that surge of warmth out ahead of the cold front itself. And then as things shift and change direction, you get the cold front and the impacts from that. Right now, we're still dry heading into this evening, but we can already see the moisture moving in. You basically draw a line from up in Colville all the way down to even Pendleton, Oregon, and then that is our trek of showers. Right now, it's coming down as rain, basically Highway 2 and north. We talked about this a little late last night. That is where that line's going to remain until we start getting some of that cold to come down. So we see rain initially here in Spokane, and it's rain through much of the evening, but notice what happens in the 10 o'clock hour. We start to get the cold air overrunning all of this warm air that's been around today. That cold air then comes down with the precipitation, and that rain changes over to snow tonight, and we're looking at snow overnight tapering off before the morning commute. The good news is, with how warm it's been and that lack of moisture this morning and throughout the middle part of the day, it is likely we get a lot less in terms of accumulation. Less than an inch, pretty widespread. Couple of spots looking at more than an inch, but yeah, you're really squeezing it out to get it. Less than an inch in Spokane, Coeur d'Alene, St. Mary's, Colville. Sandpoint, you might get more than an inch. Parts of the Palouse might get more than an inch, but that is really about it.